In this video today, I'll be showing you what's under the bonnet of the 2020 Skoda Fabia. Starting off in this location, you've got your pressure cap and expansion tank. You also have an electrical connector that connects to your sensor that tells the operator if your coolant level is running low. You also have on this tank your expansion line that takes expanded coolant back to the engine. This is your pulsation damper. Below your pulsation damper and below your fuel feed line, you've got your engine mount bracket for this side. You also have your engine mount itself, and you also have rubber in there to reduce vibrations from going into the chassis. Moving up from this location, you've got your air intake pipe and your timing belt cover. Behind that, you've got your timing belt itself, you've got your exhaust camshaft gear wheel, and you also have your variable valve timing gear wheel for your inlet camshaft. To reduce induction roar, you have this component here. Behind your pulsation damper, you've got your fuel feed line, and you also have this line here. Now this line is part of your return system. Located below and aft of your expansion line, you've got your brake fluid cap and reservoir tank. Now you have an electrical connector for your brake level sensor. Now underneath this tank, you've got your master cylinder, your two brake lines that goes to your ABS modulator, and other components, like your vacuum brake booster. There are other components in this location, like your supply line that supplies brake fluid to your clutch control circuit, sound deadening to reduce noise of the engine compartment from going into the cabin, heat shielding, and other components. The expansion tank system is needed because as coolant heats up, it expands. So there needs to be a location where the expanded coolant can go to, so that's why you have an expansion tank. In this location here, what my hand is covering is the vehicle identification number. Moving towards the front of the car, you can see your upper radiator support. And below that, you've got serial numbers for your headlight module for this side. Just below your upper radiator support, you also have this adjuster here. Now this is one of your adjustments to allow service personnel to adjust headlight aim. One thing I forgot to mention in this location is you also have your other service adjustment to adjust headlight aim. Moving the camera to this location, you can see your vacuum pump. Now one of the things this vacuum pump is used for is to supply vacuum to your brake booster. Now just behind your vacuum pump, you can see one of your air conditioning recharge point dust covers. Located at the bottom front offside of the engine compartment, you can see the back of your fog light module for this side. Near side is left, offside is right, if you were looking at the back of the vehicle. Moving back up to this location, you've got quite a few different components. For example, you've got one of your chassis rails. You've also got your other air conditioning recharge point dust cover, both of your service covers to gain access to the back of the headlight module, and other components like your electrical wiring harness to power and control that headlight. Up in this location, you've got your washer fluid cap, and below that you will have your washer fluid neck. Below your expansion tank, you've got your coolant supply line and one of your pressure sensors for the air conditioning system. Moving further down in this location, you can see your auxiliary belt system. Now this system consists of your auxiliary belt tensioner pulley, your crankshaft pulley, your pulley for the air conditioning compressor, and your alternator pulley. You can also see on the alternator cooling holes and your stator windings. Above the alternator you have your oil pressure switch and your map sensor. Now please note, the map sensor in this car also includes your intake air temperature sensor. At the rear offside of the engine compartment you can see a right drive shaft with CV tripod joint, your catalytic converter, your exhaust manifold that's built into the head, your pre-cat lambda sensor, and other components. The reason why the exhaust manifold is built into the head is so that the catalytic converter is as close to the engine as possible, improving warm-up time and reducing emissions during the warm-up phase. Near side of your catalytic converter, you've got your two selector cables, and your 2 pipes that takes coolant to and from your heater matrix. Moving the camera to this location, you can see your other chassis rail and one of your locations where the subframe attaches to the chassis, your tie rod with boot, your anti-roll bar with one of its bushes. You also have your other drive shaft and other tripod CV joint. Offside of this drive shaft you have your differential housing. Now below your gearbox you've got a aerodynamic shield. Aerodynamic shields are used to improve aerodynamics. The whole point of a transmission is to provide different gear ratios of torque multiplications. In this location again you've got your ABS control unit, a big electrical connector, your modulator block, your brake lines, your 2 main brake lines that goes to and from your master cylinder, and other components. Up in this location you can see your engine control unit. You also have a massive electrical connector on the electronic control unit. Moving to the front of the car, on the slam panel you've got information warning you about the different hazards. You've also got a location where you put the prop stick when not in use, a cutout for your safety latch, and information about what refrigerant the air conditioning system takes and capacity, and what oil does the system require. In front of the intake manifold runners, you've got your radiator module. Now this module consists of your shroud for the cooling fan, your cooling fan motor, and other components related to the cooling system. Located towards the bottom of the engine compartment, you can see your spin-on style oil filter, the back of your air conditioning compressor, one of your cooling vents, and your transmission bell housing. To the right of the oil separator, you have your crankshaft position sensor. You also have in this area your reverse light switch and your clutch control hydraulic line to your semi-cylinder. In this location, you've got your power electronics for your electronic throttle body. So inside there you would have your butterfly valve for the throttle body. You can also see just in front of that one of your vacuum pipes with check valve. Just behind that you've got this sensor here to measure how much vacuum is in the brake booster. Just ahead of that sensor you've got another check valve. Your thermostat housing in this engine also contains your coolant pump. The water pump in this engine is driven off a gear wheel that is connected to a tuft belt. This tuft belt is also connected to another gear wheel that is driven off the exhaust camshaft. Underneath your 2 selector cables, you've got your starter motor and starter motor solenoid. A starter motor is absolutely critical because it is used to crank the engine over in the right direction. You also have on the starter motor assembly your big ground cable and big positive cable. At the bottom rear of the engine compartment you can see your steering rack with one of its boots for the tie rod, and you also have your anti-roll bar down there as well. Moving near side front of the engine compartment, what am I touching there is a protective cover over the positive terminal that is used to prevent accidental short circuits. You also have your battery magic eye and grab handle and other components. In this location here you can see your negative post and your battery monitoring sensor. To the right of that you can see your bonnet release cable, which is protected by this component. The 12-volt battery in this car sits on a battery tray. You have this component here that is used as part of your system to hold the battery in the car. Moving further aft, you've got your lid for one of your power distribution centers. Moving back to this location, you've got your intake manifold runners. The reason why they're this long is to improve volumetric efficiency lower down in the rev range. Having long intake runners improves low-end torque. Just above your intake manifold runners, you've got your evap control solenoid. In this location, you can see quite a few different components. For example, you can see your oil filler cap, your solenoid control valve for your intake variable valve timing system, 2 of your coil packs with electrical connectors, the lid for the air filter box, and your pipe that leads to your air filter box. This pipe here is part of your positive crankcase ventilation system. You can also see your dipstick. Just below that, you can see one of your electrical connectors for one of your fuel injectors, and you also have your fuel rail. On the lid, you have 3 letters. MPI stands for multi-port injection. Thank you very much for watching my video, and goodbye.